Welcome back. It's Tuesday, and today we are finally getting back onto the COE project. I received all the parts I'd been waiting on for the 4-link setup early last week. I just wanted to button up a couple of things on those other cars before diving back into this head first. And what we're going to start with today is getting the axle tabs welded on for the lower 4-link set. And then we'll probably start designing frame mounts for the lower mounts as well. So let's get started. I accidentally got a little bit ahead of myself and forgot to grab the camera, but what we're doing basically is welding the axle tabs on the lowers. Got the axle flipped upside down, and first step I did was to make sure that the axle was at 90 degrees, perfectly level. And the way I did that was by putting my little digital level here on this back brace that I welded on there a while back. And after we did that, we basically figured out how to line up the axle tab by taking a little square here, and we just based it off of the leaf spring perch, and we went ahead and favored the inside, meaning, as you could see, the new perches are closer to the frame. And the reason for that is the leaf spring mounts on the frame actually offset the mounting point by almost an inch, and it just so happens that by favoring the inside on this, we went ahead and made that mounting point up there flush with the frame, so it'll make frame brackets a lot easier to make. So we've got it tacked on. We're just gonna go ahead and double check our measurements. And the way I found the level, or the way I made sure that it's at 90 degrees, I should say, is I took an axle tab like this and just set it on my table here. And first I took my level and made sure that the table itself was perfectly flat, as you can see, 0.0. And then I took the axle tab just like this, and I put the level on this edge here. And by doing that, it told me what this angle is off of a perfectly flat surface, and I was able to transfer that, which was 72.6 degrees. So I just made sure that our axle tabs were at 72.6 degrees as well. And all I gotta do is double check that all that came okay after I tacked it on there, and should be okay to weld. Everything checked out. Our level was still 72.6 off of this side here, with the differential being at 0.0 degrees. And that's the pinion angle, in case I didn't mention it. And also, we still are measuring square off of the leaf spring pad. So I was gonna fully weld it, but you know, I thought better of doing that and just went ahead and threw 3 really good partial welds on each one. And that way, if I have to alter the position of them down the line, which I highly doubt, but crazier things have happened, it won't be a real pain in the ass. So now we'll jump over to the other side, get that done, and then we can start making the 4-link bars. Okay, we got both tabs welded in at the same angle. Well, they're just tack welded on there, I should say, but anyways, what we're gonna go ahead and do now is cut this 2-inch quarter wall DOM to length and notch them so that we can get the end links to fit on there real nice, and then get them welded. Say hello to my not so little friends. 2-inch quarter wall DOM for the 4 links. Some massive link bars. Stuff for like rock crawlers, but I thought it would be pretty good looking, so that's what I went with. And I already had the DOM, so it worked out. All right, these 2 are gonna be our lower link bars. We're shooting for an overall length of 36 inches center to center. So we gotta grab a 2-inch hole notcher and throw it on our tube notcher. Well, lucky us, I had a brand new 2-inch hole dozer in the drawer. So first notch we're gonna make is we're gonna chop out 1/2 inch out of this guy. I think that should be enough to wrap around the this piece real well. So let's get it cut and find out. All right, so a 1/2 inch in was like right on the money. As you can kind of see here, it doesn't quite reach the edge. I actually probably could have gone a smidge under a 1/2 inch, because ideally you want to leave this area flat, because you have to like sand it back down to expose this edge anyways. You can't have it like coat the pipe all the way to the edges. It doesn't give a good weld area. So I got that single notch done on what I was calling our lower link bars before I realized that our lower link bars are going to be adjustable, and there is no point in having the upper link bars adjustable. So this is actually the end links for the lower links, and just put one on each side, and that way you can knock loose the jam nut here and just spin the bar to lengthen or shorten the lower links, which are straight and run parallel with the frame. So, and this, the reason why I think the upper link bars don't need adjustment is because they're going to be triangulated, which means they're going to run from the center point on the top of the differential. Again, remember it's upside down and backwards right now, but they'll be mounted up here in the center, and one will come out to the inside edge of this frame, and the other one will go out to that frame rail and form a triangle essentially. And unless I'm crazy, I don't think you can just lengthen the arms of the triangle without the shape of the triangle wanting to change. And these are just bushings. There's nothing spherical about it to allow that pivot to happen. So correct me if I'm wrong, but upper link bars, there's no point in making them adjustable. Yeah, so I guess this is actually going to be one of our upper link bars. It might be a bit too long, but that's okay. We still got about 10 feet left of 2-inch quarter wall, so we'll just start over and cut a couple to 3 feet, and yeah, get back to it. I'll tell you what, it's a dang good thing I didn't weld these axle tabs on though, because the threaded end links are 1/4 inch shorter or less wide than the non-threaded ones, so would have been a whole lot more cutting to move this in 1/4 inch, but luckily we thought ahead. Okay, so we got round 2 on these lower link bars done, and we got it right this time. 36 inches overall, and that's with the threaded end links threaded about halfway out, because you want to give equal amounts of adjustment both in and out. So this way you could loosen the jam nuts, twist the rod, and move the tie rod maybe 1 inch shorter, and then make it also up to 1 inch longer than it is. So we're gonna go ahead and start welding these guys together. Well, I hate to say it, but I was wrong again. I was playing with them a little bit before I went ahead and welded anything, and it turns out they're not directional. So ordinarily with link bars, at least in my experience, what you'll get is a left hand thread and a right hand thread for the other side, so that when you twist the bar, they push out in opposite directions or pull in towards each other. And that's not the case here. They're all the same threads, so I guess we're gonna go ahead and go with 4 adjustable bars, even though the top 2 won't be able to have any adjustment. I don't know. All right, we're calling it a night, but we finished the lower links. Just waiting for them to cool off, and the upper links are halfway done. Actually, yeah, about halfway, I'd say. So we'll finish those up tomorrow. We have to finalize the length on the uppers, so we actually might not finish them tomorrow, but yeah, tomorrow we'll get started on the frame mounts. So I'll catch you then. Good night. Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, and we're back on the 4-link, and unfortunately last night before I closed up shop, I tried to loosen the adjustable links on the lower bars, and one of them turned okay, but the other one only turned like maybe an eighth of a turn, and then kind of binded up, and it had just like a sweet spot where it would move back and forth. And the reason why is because I guess I got a little too hot when I was welding this one, and it melted a couple threads in the bung, and basically I had to take the entire bar to work and throw it on a pipe vise and use like a 4-foot piece of tube to twist this out, and it did some pretty good damage on the lower half of the threads, and the tube bung as well is not looking too pretty. I did order a tap and die for this size to see if we can't clean it up enough to make it work, and it's unfortunate, but you know, live and learn. At least it only happened to one of them. So alright, so what we're going to do today, in order to finish the upper link bars, we need to have the axle positioned exactly where it's going to be. And in order to do that, we're going to throw the leaf springs back on, and we'll just set the frame down onto the leaf spring pads on the axle, because I already threw away the U-bolts. Leaf springs are reinstalled. We set the frame down on the axle, and we've mocked up our 4-link bars here. I have a feeling they may be too long. We're gonna have to check the angle that is created at the point of the triangle here. And I've also got a lower link bar mocked up. I went ahead and installed it into the tabs we tacked on back there. And here you can kind of see what I was talking about originally when we cheated the tabs on the axle to the inside. It makes the tab for this lay perfectly on the frame, and that's just going to make it a lot easier than having to offset it the whole an inch like the original style. And of course I'm going to build probably going to build my own mounting system. These tabs are really just for mock-up. So let's check our angle on this and see where we're at. We ended up cutting down the upper link bars 6 inches, and I'm just now notching them. And I tightened up the amount I took out of it on this tube, and this is what I would consider like a perfect notch, because it leaves this area nearly flat and that area flat, so it doesn't even really take any dressing on the belt sander. Just clean up the rust areas and good to weld. The upper bars are looking real good. We've got 30 degrees that way, 30 degrees that way, for a total of 60 degrees, which should be plenty to keep our axle centered. And the lower link bar, I think it's gonna sit pointing upward at maybe 1.5 degrees. Just a hair lower than that should be solid. So gonna make some boxes that drop down and attach to these mounts, and we'll just go with that. And as for the upper here, I have some tubing over there that I'm gonna be using, and I think I'm gonna try and make some kind of tubular design, because the upper airbag mounts are gonna be back here, and I'm gonna do that out of tube. And then gonna come up with something as well here for the upper link bars to connect to. So let's get started planning on that and see what we come up with. Hey everybody, well, I believe the last time we left off, I had messed up the threads on one of the lower links, and on Saturday, I believe it was, I did get a used tap and die that I purchased off of eBay. All in, I think it was about $30 for both of them shipped, and a completely new link with bung would have been about the same price. But luckily the tap and die cleaned it up really well, and it goes back together just the way it should. and we have 2 new tools, so it's not all bad. And we're just gonna keep trucking, and what we're gonna work on today is making a cross brace to mount both of the upper link bars to on the frame, and it's also gonna connect to the lower link bars, which we still haven't made mounting points for yet, but we'll probably get started on that as well. All right, so my basic idea for my upper cross brace for the upper links, I'm just gonna take a piece of 1 3/4 tubing and do one bend in it right here at the center, and I'm gonna have mounting tabs come off of the 1 3/4 to hold each of the upper arms here, and then from here we'll have tubes shoot down to add support to the cross section for the lower links as well. And they'll probably I've got an idea for how I'm going to mount the tubes to the frame, and I think what I'm going to end up doing is drilling an 1 3/4 hole here and shooting a piece of tube straight down to the bottom, and that way it just gives me a good attachment point without having to plate the frame. Okay, so what we're going to do first is I've got these mounting tabs that are for the upper link bars, and I've went ahead and measured where the bushing lands, and then the secondary mark there is clearance for a Zerk fitting. So what we're going to do is tack weld all 4 of these together with the TIG welder so that we can just do one pass with a hole saw through all 4 of them, and it'll give us the exact same cut. So let's get them welded together. I stuck the bolt through to go ahead and make sure that they stayed nice and aligned, and I just put a bunch of tack welds on the side that's going to be getting cut off once the hole saw punches through anyways. So essentially what will happen is as we're drilling through these guys, they'll just fall off one at a time, and they'll all come out in the exact same size. So let's get it thrown in the vise, and actually first we have to find where our center line is going to be so that our 1 3/4 hole saw lands right there. Alright, so 7/8 is 1/2 of an 1 3/4, so we just measured down from there to 7/8, and then we measured from here to here, which is 2 inches, so we split it in half, and boom, that's where our center is going to be. So I was just threw the parts here in the drill press, and just gonna punch a hole straight through all 4 of them. Well, 3 hole saws later, and all 4 1/4-inch brackets are notched. I think maybe the speed setting on my drill press was a little bit too high and burned up a few bits, but got the job done. And basically this is our cross brace. I'm probably going to add a straight tube here just for strength, and the way it's going to attach to the frame is I'm going to take a couple pieces of tubing that are long enough to go through down to here, and I'm just going to cope this so that it sits on this nice and flush, and this will punch all the way through the frame rails from the top to the bottom on both sides. So I'm gonna go ahead and call it a night, and we'll jump back on this first thing tomorrow. Well, I'm gonna start off by saying sorry because I completely skipped recording all of my progress for today, and the reason why really is just you know, I just really jumped into what I had to get done and made it happen. So I got my upper mounts all welded in, and I'm really happy with the way it came out. The positioning's great. Our upper bar is pointing down at about 1/2 degree at ride height, which is just where we wanted it. So you kind of can get a better idea of what I was trying to describe earlier now. I shot a piece of tubing clean through the frame, welded it to the lower frame, of course welded it to the upper frame, and the cross brace even goes through the frame as well, and I welded that to it too. So a lot of connection points. Even the outer tabs are partially welded to the frame. So I think it's going to be plenty strong, and I think it looks pretty cool. So I'm happy with that. Our next step tomorrow is going to be making some plates to attach these guys to that are going to come directly off the side of the frame here. And we'll probably do something simple like the leaf spring there for that. But in order to make it stronger, my plan is to shoot a tube from here down to here on each side. So that'll add a secondary cross brace for the lower link bars as well. Anyways, that's basically the game plan for tomorrow. So I'm gonna call it a night for tonight, and I'll catch you then. Bye. All right, we're back in the shop for another day of learning. Today we're gonna work on the frame mounts for the lower link bars, and we're also gonna work on the reinforcement bars that are gonna come from the upper cross brace and shoot down into the frame. My plan is to essentially shoot a tube through the frame again, only above the section where the lower arm is gonna mount. And that way we can just run a tube from here to the center of that tube that's inside the frame. And I don't know if that'll add better support or if it has any practical use, but it's just the idea I came up with, so it's what I'm gonna do. And as far as the frame mounts go, we're essentially just going to do something very similar to what we did for the bags in the front, and make a bracket with two arms that run up the frame, and we'll probably add a center support as well, and we'll also run some gussets from here down to here to add lateral support. So we got a lot to do. Let's get started. So for the frame mounts, normally, as you probably already know, we would make a paper template, but for what we got going here, it's going to be very simple. We already know it's going to be at a 90-degree angle, so all we really need is a couple of measurements, and those measurements are going to be the length of the arms we want running up the frame, and then how far out from the frame it's going to be to support these brackets, which is going to be about 3 3/4, and we've got about 9 inches to work with here, and we're more than likely going to have the arms at a bit of an angle off to the sides, and the only real reason for that is because my press brake, it won't bend 290s in a tight radius like that, and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about once we get into it. You actually do need 3 measurements, and the third one is going to be the width of the bracket there, where you're going to make the bends at. So it's gonna So this is why we don't need a paper template. It's a really simple design. Like I said, you know that it's going to be a 90-degree angle. So once we fold these two arms up, it's just doesn't really get much simpler. You got your 3-inch leg, your 3 3/4 leg, and your 9-inch leg, and yeah, you just connect it all together, and soon we will have a part. Make that 2 parts. I had a stroke of genius before I went ahead and cut out the pieces. You remember I mentioned I was going to make a center support. I realized I could just cut this out in a rectangular shape and get all the center supports I need, plus more. So I'll have my centers, and then I'll have legs to support the bracket off of the bottom of the frame. So just thought I'd share that with you guys real quick before I got it cut out. I'll tell you what, my consistency with the plasma cutter has gone through the roof. I'm just kidding. I threw the training wheels back on there. They actually make a really great guide with a straight edge, and I would recommend doing that every time you have to cut a line that is straight. So we're gonna break that off, and I'm probably gonna cut the rest of the pieces in the bandsaw, just because for me it's easier. I think it's worth mentioning that in case you can't manage with like pieces of plate like I can, personally I can't manage a full sheet of plate, but a half sheet I can do okay with. But if you can't even do a half sheet, you can go to the metal yards and buy like 6-inch wide plate, and 4-inch, I think 2-inch. They have a lot of different sizes, and it's basically how I've been getting along for a long time now. And that, coupled with this bandsaw setup that I run, you can make a whole lot of stuff. So just food for thought if you're thinking about it. This is a problem you'll run into quite frequently doing this method with this little bandsaw. You don't have a lot of throat depth, so you're gonna end up hitting your workpiece on the body of the machine before you finish your cut, and you're not going to be able to finish cutting your line straight. And you can see this is the first set. I only made it to about there and here. So the way you get around this is you're going to draw these exact same lines on the back side of the piece and just run it from a different direction. I've found like 99% of the time, if I have this issue, that's been the workaround that will get me to where I need to be. Start off by marking the tops of where your lines end, and then just flip the pieces over, trace the line over onto the other side, and you've got your cut line already. So all you need is a small straight edge from here to there to connect the dots, and we'll run it. And here you can see I've got plenty of room now to finish the cut on this piece. And once that's done, we'll flip it around, and we can actually, it looks like we can run this one from the original side and finish that cut. So all you really gotta do is just check all possible angles and all possible sides, and you'll be able to make a surprising amount of cuts on this thing. All right, got everything all cut out. Now we're ready to make our bends in this, and you'll see exactly what I was talking about when I said my press brake's not going to be able to make those 90s that close together. All right, so I put 10 full pumps into bending the first side, and I think that measured out to well, I guess it doesn't really matter, but anyways, as you can see, this is the angle we've got. I'd say it's maybe close to a 45, and those of you who are observant will be able to tell right away, as soon as we start bending the other angle, this is gonna come up and connect right into our press, and it's really gonna limit how much we can continue to bend the other side. So that's why I didn't go crazy on the first side. The only real workaround I have for this is putting the bracket into a vise and beating the shit out of it with a hammer to achieve the final angle that I need. But I'm gonna try and avoid doing that. We'll see if we can come up with something else, or we'll see how close we get. Okay, so I put 10 full pumps into the other side, and we're not quite there yet, but I think we'll probably get 2 to 3 pumps more on each side before we're making contact real bad. So let's see where that angle ends up at. Okay, that's 13 pumps on each side, and we're pretty much there. We'll go ahead and pop it out and see how even each side is, and then we'll decide what we're gonna do. All right, it looks like we've got 118 on one side and 124 on the other, degrees I should say. So we're off by 10 degrees on one side, and this is what it looks like set on the frame. It's not horrible, but it's not gonna work for me. So we're gonna even them up and try and get them bent in a little bit more. I don't like how splayed out it is like that. I don't need it to come in a lot more, but I would be happy with a little. So that's what we're gonna make. We've got both sides to approximately 68.2 degrees, and while the arms aren't as close together as I would like them, we managed to do this on the brake only, and we didn't have to resort to a hammer. So I am gonna call this good, because we are gonna run a brace through the center up the frame as well. It just might look a little bit like a crown or something, but it'll be strong. So let's get to it, making that second one. When you're duplicating parts like this, if you can remember how many times you pumped the bottle jack for each bend, it'll save you a lot of time in the long run. I believe we did approximately 15 pumps per side, so And instead of having to throw it in the press brake multiple times like we did on the first one, we'll just go to 15, flip it, go to 15, check our degree, and we should be good. If not, we might have to throw it back. Did a quick check against the original piece, and we're pretty money. There's a little slag right here that's causing a hang up, but I'd say we nailed it. All right, we got 2 exact replicas, and yeah, they look kind of like a crown, but who cares? They'll be strong, and we're gonna rock it. Not half bad, in my opinion, anyways. We will make a paper template for the area back here to fill it in and make it look super solid, but this is pretty much what it's gonna look like, and I can't complain. So those of you who are observant probably also observed that I should have prepped my surfaces on these guys before bending them. And when I say prep the surfaces, I mean clean all the edges that are going to be welded. And the reason why, when the piece is flat, it's real easy to get every single edge as clean as you need it to be. But once it's bent, there are areas you can't get to anymore with your belt sander or whatever it is you may be using. So kind of stuck with as good as it could get. And I don't really care what anybody says. I know a lot of people say you can weld over mill scale with a MIG. I personally won't weld anything unless I have like bright shiny metal to weld to, and I just do that for peace of mind. So just another tip. Okay, we got the frame mounts partially done. They're tack welded on there, and it came out real nice. At least I think so. It's gonna look solid once it's done, and it will be solid. There was an issue on the driver's side, however, and it relates back to the tabs on the axles. When I went ahead and mounted this to the frame rail, it turned out that the tabs here were hanging out by a good 1/4 of an inch forward of this mounting point. So the reason why that happened is because the tabs on the axle must be ever so slightly crooked. So it's a really good thing that I only tack welded those brackets on there, on the axle anyways, because we're gonna have to cut those tack welds off and reposition. But overall, I'm really happy with the way this is coming out. We're also to a point now where we could finally remove the leaf springs for good and knock the brackets off the frame. If you remembered, we already grinded off all the rivets that hold them on and cut any of the welds. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. Before, I got a chisel, and we're just gonna take a sledgehammer and basically drive it in between the flanges and the frame, and it should separate them pretty easily. Well, everybody, that's one more thing checked off the list. Super happy with my progress today for 3 hours of time, and it's really starting to come together. So I'm gonna call it a night for now, and tomorrow we'll get started first thing with the frame supports that we're gonna shoot through here. And you can see I've already prepped everything. All we have to do is yeah, we're gonna plasma cut another hole right here on each side, run a tube through, and then we'll come from the point here over to the tube, approximately in the center area, however it works out. And we'll also make the plates for in here to box that in, and we'll add the support that's gonna run from the bottom of the frame rail to down to here, just for a little extra lateral support. But yeah, super pumped. I'll see y'all tomorrow morning.